So I want to welcome everybody into this space. So I really thank you so much for spending this time with me. I know that everybody is busy, and so my hope today is to really just share three things with you that I feel has made some of the biggest differences in my experience of building my businesses. And so I think of these as being just really three kind of building block principles that whether you are at the stage of just starting to even think about starting a business or whether you've been doing this for quite a while, the stuff that I'm going to be guiding you through today is really just going to help you to get more focus, more clarity, and more confidence in whatever those next steps that you're taking are. So whether that is the tiniest little step of just starting to kind of play with this idea of starting a business of your own, or whether you're ready for a great big leap into what you know is kind of that next right thing for you. What I'm sharing with you today is just going to help you to think through some of those things and how they apply to your world. So I invite you to get a pen and paper because some of these things I really want to make this time as useful as possible. And so I'm going to be giving you time to really start to apply and reflect on how these questions that I'm asking you are really going to apply into your business or your goal, whatever that is for you. And I'm just curious for people if you want to put in the chat to just let me know whether you have businesses currently or whether you're just starting to think about that, moving that direction a little bit more. And I'm just going to invite you to just kind of message that in the box so that I know a little bit about where people are at in this room. And just give me my slide. Oh. All right, there we go. So I felt the need to really share this workshop and to volunteer my time to offer some of the things that I've really learned through starting my businesses, because I've been doing my business for a while, but it was not until last year that my appreciation and gratitude for my business took on a whole completely different level. So as you may have heard earlier in the chat before we got started, last year I had the opportunity to go with my partner to Italy. And while this was an amazing opportunity and, it kind of felt like winning the lottery in some ways to be able to go and have this, exotic experience of living in Italy for a while, the, reality was behind the scenes, this experience was way more challenging than I had really ever anticipated. And I was it was the first time that I had really been so far away from, my circle and my world and some of those things that I had built up around me. And I was shocked to just really experience firsthand, cumulatively, the effect of all of that loss, all of that stepping out and away from, my world, and how consuming my partner's career really was of so many different areas of my life. So I don't know if you can relate to that feeling, but for me, that was the first time that I had really felt it and experienced it full force in that way. And so what I realized and what I've thought a lot about since is how truly grateful I've been for my business, because for me, that really offered me a couple key things while I was in Italy and really far from everybody and everything that I knew. And those things were really important to me. So one of them was that it felt like I still had a piece of my identity that was not dependent on my relationship with my spouse or anybody else in my life, but it felt like I had a piece that still was very much my own in the midst of a time where it felt like I often didn't have a lot that was just my space. And it also offered me income and that piece of security that I really had access to all my own funds and all my own sense of financial power in that way. And it also really gave me and allowed me to maintain what was my passion. And again, that tied into the identity piece, but my dad would sometimes say to me, what are you doing for hobbies these days? And I often reply and say, I'm working on my business, and not because I'm a workaholic, but because Having a business is so multifaceted, and there's so many different things and different areas that this interweaves with and entrepreneurship interweaves with. But to me, this is a really creative and energizing thing that I get to do, which is really creating a business of my own. And so it was really that experience of really noticing fully the impact of all of those things that were happening around me and with my work, that I felt the need to really be sharing as much as I can about what I've learned along the way of starting businesses with other military spouses who might be thinking about starting a business or might be looking at how to grow a business or nurture a business. And so this is really my hope for you today, is that this time feels like it helps you to really just lean into and get more clear on what might be calling your name a little bit in terms of your business or your projects. And I'll just share with you as well, for me, one of the biggest things about entrepreneurship as well is that it's really allowed me to design what I consider to be a life and not just a job. So I was saying to somebody before we started, right now I'm literally looking out my window at the Aegean Sea. I'm looking at the Turkish and Greek islands, and I'm in a position where I have full control of my schedule, when I work, right, which is sometimes good and bad. I have full autonomy to do really whatever it is that I feel called to do. And there's really no fine, hard line between my work life and my entrepreneur life. Gone are those days when I used to go to a job and really, be staring at the clock and waiting until it was time for me to be able to go home and into my life. For me, I've really built something that just feels like me across the board. So this is where I also say, I think that this is, our businesses are really an opportunity to just step more fully into our own selves. And for me, that's really exciting and really challenging and wonderful in lots of ways too. So the first question and the first foundation piece that I want to offer you, and what I'm going to get you to get your pen and paper and start to write out, is who do you want to work with? Now, I would argue that this question of who do you want to work with or who do you want to offer products to is really just as important as what is that specific product or service that you're offering. And so when you think about it, who is it that you serve? Who is it that you offer products to? And feel free to just type it into the chat and let me know. Who do you want to work with? And what I really find is this question of who do you want to work with is such a critical question, because this foundation piece actually guides every decision and every action that we take in our businesses. Cool. I'm just looking at the chat here. So when you think about that thing that you're wanting to offer, that thing that you're wanting to put out there into the world, that thing that you're wanting other people to be able to receive and experience or use, whatever that product or service is for you, who is it that comes up in your mind when you think about that? Because the more clear that we can really get on who that specific person is that we're looking to connect with and target our stuff to, the more we can make sure that everything that we're doing is really in line with that vision. And here's why this becomes so important. If I give you two examples of what is what I would call a targeted message and a non-target or general message, they're going to sound really different. So let's say, and this is going to apply whether you're a bookkeeper or a real estate agent or you're selling products on Etsy or you're doing personal training, right? It's going to apply to absolutely every form of business and endeavor. So let's say you're a bookkeeper and your copy that you write out on your website or on your promotional materials say, hello, my name is April, I'm a bookkeeper, I got my diploma from Conestoga College and I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm going to help you get organized for tax time. Okay, so that's example number one. Compare how that feels for you with this. I'm April. I have a love of crunching numbers and running spreadsheets, and I would be happy to take all of those hanging to-do list items off of your tasks for women entrepreneurs so that you can go and continue to do the parts of business that you love. So can you kind of see that one of those is just a really general statement? It's kind of designed for everybody. The other one really starts to use a language that is specifically geared to women entrepreneurs. And when you think about this, if we use the example of a bookkeeper, this has a really, really different impact and emotional experience for the person who is reading that message or hearing that message. In the first one, I have no idea of who this person is that I'm working with, or what they're about, or who they are, or if I can trust them. In the second one, you kind of start to put a picture in your head of who that bookkeeper is. And I don't know about you, but I want to support that business because that's the one that I know I can relate to the most. And people get really nervous with this idea of getting specific and really starting to make your marketing specifically to like one person only. Because the fear is, so let's say we use the example of like health coaching, right? Who do you want to help? I want to help everybody. Well, of course you do, right? But who do you really most want to work with? If you could picture that ideal client that you're doing a Skype consult with, or that ideal person that is buying this product that you've made, who do you picture in your head? So, and I know the fear is that if we get really specific, we're going to miss out on some clients that aren't going to work with us, right? Because if we use that really feminine language, let's say, it's just an example, then maybe the guys aren't going to work with us. But I would argue that, and the idea that I've really heard expressed in the best possible way, is that when you are talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. You've basically just turned everybody off. Whereas for me, one of the guiding principles that I used is I wanted people, whether they were coming to my social media feed, or whether they were coming to my website, or whether they were even just, seeing my picture, I wanted them to really get the feeling that this is for me, or it's not, right? This is exactly for me, or it's not. Because at the end of the day, I don't want a huge email list necessarily, or a huge social media following, or a huge list of potential customers. I want to connect with the people who want to connect with me. And I want to connect with the people who actually need and value what I have to offer. Because those are the people I'm going to be able to serve in the best possible way. And those are the people who are actually going to pay to work with me. These other people aren't, right? So when you get your pen and paper, here's what I want you to do. We're going to create a client avatar today. Have people ever heard of this concept of client avatar? Let me know yes or no. I'm just going to take a look at the chat. Okay, so I'm good with the slides, thanks. So here's what we're going to do. And again, really feel free just to let yourself take all of that pressure off your shoulders of you have to know for sure, or, I don't really know who I want to work with, or I'm not really totally sure what the business is that I want to start yet. Take all of that big pressure off your head and just kind of let yourself play with this idea a little bit and see what comes up. You can always make a different decision later. You can always change your mind. But for this point in time, just let yourself kind of play with this idea. When you picture that person who is clicking buy, or when you're clicking talking to that person, or thinking about that person who is buying your product or buying your service, what is that visual picture that you get of them? How old are they? And I want you to get your pen and write this out. Are they male or female? About what age? And try to make this really specific. What do they do for fun? What's their income level? Where do they spend their time? Where does this person hang out? And I'll give you an example from my own work. So one of the things that I did really early on was I created this client avatar. And then what I would do before I would post something on social media, before I would write an offer or an email for someone to consider working with me, I would really picture this person in my mind, this fictional kind of character, right? Later it became kind of a specific client, but I would picture the specific person and I would think, does this fit for her? If I was offering this truly just on a one-to-one basis, instead of just writing a copy for a poster or my promotions for my social media files, does this really speak to her? If I was that person, would this resonate for me? Because it's this idea that if we're talking to everyone, we're talking to no one. So for me, when I looked at my ideal client avatar, for some of the work that I was really focused on in that area of my business, I identified that she's 28 years old. She has an income of around $50,000, more or less. She's into things like yoga and journaling and fitness and drinks green smoothies, right? Which almost sounds ridiculous because it's so specific, but having that degree of specificity allowed me to really get clean and tight with my marketing and with my message, because it's her that I wanted to hear that. And then of course the interesting thing is my community has become a whole bunch of hers, right? That as well as a bunch of other people that don't exactly fit that profile either. For instance, I was thinking about this morning before I offered this presentation, I was thinking about some of the resistance that comes up around this, and that the fear is that we're excluding people, right? If I make my branding, and I'm talking about my own stuff here, too feminine as an example, then I'm distancing the guys. And when I looked at really that, to ask myself if that's true, what I realized really quickly was it's not. This month, for instance, I've worked with clients that are literally age 17 to 70, literally, right? My client avatar is 28. But the people that end up coming to me is still a range. And I think that part of the reason for that is because when you are on point and targeted with your message and your branding, it comes off as way more professional. So whether somebody specifically relates to every single part of my branding and message or not, I instantly stand out as being a professional and therefore more trustworthy. Does that make sense? So think a little bit, what would be the name that you would even give to your specific client? The second foundational piece that I want to offer you is I believe that no matter what business you are in, whether you are selling kitchen products or whether you are selling tax services or houses, whatever that service is, you are in a business of relationships, because that is what business, in my belief, and in the only model of business that I'm interested in, I'm sure other people do this differently, but the one that I believe in and I believe works most effectively is the model of relationships. The reality is that people buy things from people that they know, that they like, and that they trust. And this is why, for instance, we have to really think about getting brave. So as an example, when I really started branching out into the online part of my business, I was aware that because of some of the sensitive nature of some of the things that I was talking about, I really had to show people the face behind the business. I really had to show people who it was that they were connecting with. And to be totally honest, that was not comfortable for me at first. And I realized that now, if you were to hang out with me, right, what you'd notice is I'm often ending up taking pictures, right? Because I realized my client avatar, 28, she hangs out on social media. In fact, she spends more time there than probably anywhere else in her life, right? I may be exaggerating, but you get the point. So I realized I had to take selfies. I had to put selfies of myself on Instagram. I did not even have an Instagram account before I started that part of my business. But I realized that this is what my clients needed from me. They needed to know who I am. And this is true whether you're selling baby blankets or whether you are selling vacation homes, right? People need to know who they are. And if we look at an example of that bookkeeper, the person that just wrote, went to this college, been doing this for 4 years, I have no reading of who that person is. Do I trust them? No. For all I know, they've literally just got out of jail for fraud, right, and tax evasion. I don't feel trust with them. This other person who wrote the more personalized, more playful, more feminine writing, I have a little more of a sense of her. And the irony is that even though I don't actually know her any better, I feel like I do. I'm even using the word her, right? That's how powerful our messaging really is. So the other thing that I want to offer is really whether that means challenging yourself to put your photo on your website, challenging yourself to put your photo on your business cards if that feels comfortable for you, challenging yourself to be a little bit more visible. And I know that this is one of the scariest obstacles that actually holds a lot of women back when it comes to business, is having to be more visible in lots of different ways. But people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And when we look at the idea that we are in business and relationships, I think this is one of the key things that really was a major contributor to the success of my business early on. So the reality is my local business really just grew from word of mouth. That was 100% relationship-based. And part of what I would do with that, at every point in contact, I was very aware that I was talking to a human being. I was very aware of the reasons of why people might be contacting me. And so that is what I would bring into every email and every interaction that I would have with whoever that was I was having contact with. And when we're looking at online businesses, I think this idea of relationship etiquette becomes really, really important. Because what we don't want to do with people is treat people like we're having an online relationship. And let me explain a little bit more what I mean. I was in this Facebook group. One of the women had posted something in that group that it looked like it might have been a part of her business. It was a clothing post where you could buy it, but it wasn't clear to me whether that was her business, like an affiliate marketing kind of thing that she was doing, or whether she was just sharing a good deal that she saw, right? And because I like to be supportive to other people, I posted a comment, and I said, hey, is this your business? Because it was actually a business group. And I saw one comment back from her that said, yep, nothing more. So if we were to apply this to an in-person interaction, I've gone out of my way to be friendly. I've gone out of my way to approach you at the social gathering and be supportive and interested in what it is that you're doing. And it's the equivalent of being like, yep, and turning your back and walking away. And so I think a lot of times when we're creating online businesses, we really aren't fully tracking the true responsibility that I would say we have to still really bring that humanness into every point of contact that we have with our potential clients. How likely am I to buy that person's clothing? Not very, right? And really I was just presenting her with a moment to really kind of shine and a moment to kind of share a little bit more about, what made her start this business, or, how amazing this article of clothing is, right? And instead I was just saying, yep. And who knows what the reason was that for her? I'm not judging that on a personal level. But when we look at that idea, this was a business contact. I was a potential client of hers, and I got a yep, right? And we see the same thing where people post comments or they send emails, and people aren't responding. You're basically just turning your back on somebody and walking away. The third thing that I really, really, really want you to take home from this training today, if nothing else, is just start moving forward. Just start taking action towards whatever that next goal is that you've been thinking about. So whether you're at the very beginning of just thinking, starting to do a business, or whether you've been doing this for a lot of years and you know that there's one more project that's kind of calling your name, you know what that thing is, right? On some kind of core level, you've got a bit of an inkling on that. And I think that one of the things that really, really holds us up is it is so scary and it is so vulnerable, and it's often really challenges us, right, on every level to start to really put ourselves out there. And I think that is truly just a built-in universal part that we all have. And I've had that at every level of my business. There's still new fears that you have to conquer and new moments when you just have to be brave and kind of make yourself put yourself out there or make yourself take that leap. That feeling never goes away for me, and I don't think it goes away for anybody. And I'm saying that as a psychotherapist, that's my trade. So I believe that wholeheartedly. I think we get better at knowing that that fear is truly just an inevitable part of it. It just is. So I really believe in this idea that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Because whatever that reason is that made you decide to come on this call today, no matter how tiny that inkling or that spark is of what that next thing is that you've been curious about or starting to think about, that is your truth. That is your truth. And if a whole another year goes by and you don't do anything to honor that truth, you're just going to be filled with more dread, more depressed feelings, and more frustration, and that you're not really where you want to be. So I absolutely know it's terrifying, but you've got to start moving forward. And I would say that you have to start moving forward, not just with the idea stage, but you have to start putting those ideas into concrete action. There's this quote I love from Elizabeth Gilbert that says that perfectionism is just fear in really good shoes. And I don't know about you, but that certainly hits home for me. I think that this is truly just a huge part of it for all of us. I see a lot of people, and I've been there, right? There's moments when I'm still there, where you get really caught up in what is the name that I'm going to call this product or thing that I'm offering, or what is the best social media channel to start putting my energy into, or what is the right branding colors that I want to have on my website. I see people get really hung up on some of these minute details, and I get it. It feels really important to have a good business name. But here's what I want you to know. If you wait until you have the perfect business name or the absolute perfect packaging to send your products in, you're never going to send them. You're never going to have clients. You're never going to sell your jewelry or your baby blankets or whatever that thing is that you're offering. You're never going to do it if you're waiting for it to be perfect. We have to just really give ourselves a whole lot of grace to really know that the services that we're putting out there are good and the products that you're putting out there are good, right? There's no substitute for good quality. But when it comes to taking the action to get your good quality services and goods out into the world, that's the part where we just need to flex our courage muscles and jump a little bit. You can always change your business name later. You can always change, your plans for something later. When I look back at, for me, I had been doing my psychotherapy practice since 2013. And about 4 years ago, I really started learning as much as I possibly could about the world of online business for two reasons. One, I really saw an unmet need in the area that I was working in, and I wanted to step forward and fill some of that gap that I saw in services. And I wanted that to be available for free for people wherever they were with Wi-Fi. That's grown into more of a business since then. But I also wanted to be able to just offer this good stuff and have it be available to people. So I really just spent as much time learning as much as I could about online marketing and business and all that stuff. This is not stuff that we just wake up one day and feel confident and good at. So this is why I really just wanted to share some of the things that I've learned through some of the big investments of training and coaching that I've done, to really just share that knowledge, because I know that it can be really overwhelming when you start Googling this stuff, because there's so much stuff out there, and it can be really terrifying. But honestly, my business has been one of the things I'm most grateful for, because it actually has so much impact on so many areas of my own wellness and my own life. So if you wait for it to be perfect, you're never going to do it. You're never going to do it. And when we look at this from the idea of really what your potential clients or purchasers or customers want from you, they really just taking the focus off of you being perfect and putting the focus onto what it is that they want from you is a total game changer. I would say that that is the fastest way to get over your own blocks and limitations, is to really just focus on what it is that you're trying to offer the people on the other end of that interaction. Because if the spotlight is just right here on me and all of my fears and all of my worries, everything I'm doing then is going to be fueled with this almost like panicked, anxiety, desperate kind of energy, right? And that's not conducive to people really getting excited to partner with you and buy your stuff and work with you, right? So when you bring your focus into what is it that people really need from you, and when you think of your client avatar, what does that person need? What is it that they need from you? And I'm going to challenge you to kind of just think about this in a few different ways. So let's say, as an example, let's say you offer nail services, right? You help people get manicures and pedicures and nails done. Perfect. What is it you're offering them? Well, we could say, I do people's nails for them. Okay, true, but what is the problem that you're actually solving for that person? Because at the end of the day, this is what we're here for, right? This is kind of the core essence of it. This is the relationship part of it. No matter what it is that people are buying from you, or whatever it is that's made them decide to come to your website or to learn more about what it is that you offer or do, it's not because they're bored, right? It's because they actually have a problem that they're wanting a solution for. So when we think about this in the example of the nails, when we think about what your client avatar is looking for when she's thinking about getting her nails done, is it because she is going on date night with her husband and she wants a little bit more sparkle in her evening because Valentine's Day is coming up? Is it because she's a really busy mom and she wants to keep her nails looking good, but she doesn't have time to be changing it all the time, so she wants a good pair of fake nails that are going to last 3 weeks without maintenance? These are going to be two very different ways of offering those services to those people. In one bit of copy or promotion material, I'm going to talk about how this saves time. This is going to let you stay feeling polished while saving you a whole lot of time. In the other example of the person who really is looking to get their nails done for date night, I'm maybe going to talk about like feeling your best, right? Helping you feel your most confident. Whatever that language is, it's going to be two different sets of things. So when you think about what is that problem that you are helping that person to solve for whatever that thing is, it's really, really going to be different for each person. And this changes the whole dynamic of the conversation. So for instance, let's say that you sell kitchen products, right? Let's say that you run a Pampered Chef business. People know what Pampered Chef is? You guys have that everywhere, right? These awesome kitchen products. But I'll tell you how this plays out in this example. If I get invited to go to a Pampered Chef party, I don't want to go, right? What I hear when I get an invitation for that is this is going to take my time and this is going to take my money, right? I'm going to end up buying a $20 spatula and investing 2 hours of my time in this, event. I don't want to go. That is the perspective of I want to host this Pampered Chef party. Notice how that feels really different than thinking about what the women need who would be interested in coming to that. If you invited me to come and do an online virtual party, I'm probably not going to show up. But if you invite me to come and you guys are going to teach me, let's say there's going to be an online cooking demonstration and I'm going to learn how to make some recipes that are really healthy but really quick to make, and these healthy recipes are going to help me lose the weight that I had from eating all the gelato in Italy 6 months ago. I'm interested now. There's a benefit for me. Now you have my attention. Now I feel like I'm getting value for my time. So this is where it's really kind of about where do we put the spotlight. And I totally get this, right? This is kind of just the human part of it. And this is kind of where the fear kicks in. It's anxiety provoking to put something out there and offer something. It often feels really uncomfortable, especially for women that I would argue were really taught not to toot our own horn, not to really celebrate our accomplishments, and not to really brag or show off about what we're doing. And I think that really holds a lot of women back from offering their amazing services, from offering their really incredible creations, from offering their skills into the world. But when you take that anxiety spotlight off of yourself and you put it into really what do the people need from you? What are you helping them with really? Because any business you're in, you're helping people with something. Any business you're in a business or relationship. So do not let the idea of finding the perfect business name or the perfect packaging stop you from putting your good stuff out there into the world. So I've just put my contact information up there. So if people have questions or wondering a little bit about how this might apply into their life, feel free just to reach out and connect me, and I can maybe point you in the right direction to get you the information that you're looking for. But what I'm going to encourage you to do right now is to write out what is one action that you can take today to really stop hiding, whatever that product or service or thing is that you've been kind of starting to think about doing. What would be one tiny action that you could take towards that goal, of whatever that goal is for your business, whether that's starting it or growing it? What would be that one action that you could do? And if anyone has questions, I'd be happy just to share my thoughts on anything that might be coming up for people. So feel free just to put up your hand or put that message in the text. And as we just kind of wait to see if people have questions on that, I'm just going to get you to also just take that minute to think about what stood out for you here today. And I'd love to hear that from you as well. What really stood out for you the most? What are you taking with you today? And how are you going to challenge yourself to really take that with you when we end this meeting and you go back into your day? What is one way that you're going to carry that with you? So that is it for me. If you want to connect with me, I'm at aprilboyd.ca. I'm just pulling up the questions here. Okay. The personal aspect of building a business. Can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that? Okay, cool. Yes. Yeah. And again, there's all kinds of different models. And I would argue there's not one right way to do things. Anybody you talk to is going to offer you different perspectives. But this is the thing that I feel has been most alignment for me. Yeah. And so the comment is that it's not just about professionalism, but connecting with each potential client. Yeah, and I would say, you know, one of the things that I tell, for instance, psychotherapists or other therapists when I'm kind of doing trainings with them is I think it applies to every circle really. I think especially when we're venturing into something new, we almost really want to hide our personality or kind of our quirkiness or, you know, certain parts of ourselves behind this kind of gaze of being really, really professional, right? And while I totally understand that we need to be professionals at the work that we do, I think, you know, if we think about it in therapy sense, it's kind of hilarious, right? Because, for instance, I'll sometimes talk to people who, as they're describing a client, will say something like, oh, you would never know that they're the kind of person that goes to therapy. And I always just like, you know, kind of want to like laugh out loud when they say that, because to me that always sounds like, you know, a dentist that doesn't think that they should go and get a cleaning at the, right? It's absurd to me. But it also kind of presents this idea that somehow we're supposed to always be perfect. And that before we can move forward with our businesses or move forward with our ideas or move forward to be effective in helping people, we're supposed to really create this image of perfection. And to me, that's not perfection, that's faking it, that's hiding it, right? So I would rather blend professionalism also with some authenticity, right? And that we're allowed to be human beings too. So give yourself permission when you're moving into your business stuff of how can you just allow yourself to be a human being as well. Because if you wait for everything to be perfect, for you to know exactly how you're going to handle every decision that needs made or know every right step of how everything is going to play out in front of you, you're never going to get moving. So I hope that this was useful for you guys. It was really fun for me to have this change of pace and being able to talk about this because, like I said, it's been a really big passion and big part of my life. So thank you guys. That's it for me for today. But like I said, I'd be happy to answer any more questions.